So many things have ruined my childhood, so I go online to bitch and cry. It feels like all of Hollywood is up against me. They even made Optimus fly. New versions of what I grew up with are being remade, rebooted and retried. My adolescence is under attack now. I think that a part of me has died. Aliens, Predators, Marvel, DC, maybe it doesn't all quite stay.
Okay, well, except maybe for that Jar Jar Binks.
Could it be I've misunderstood? This podcast ruined my childhood.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Podcast Ruined My Childhood. I'm Phil D'Erasmo, and with me this week is Mr. Brad Jost, joining us again on the podcast. Brad, how's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's going well. I'm excited. I'm excited to chat about this. I feel like it's not often, and I don't know if I said this last time, but it's not often that I get to like branch outside of Jurassic. And the fact that we've chatted about a few different things outside of that, I'm like, all right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
People can see a different side.
Right. Of course, we had you on the Jurassic episodes, and when Dominion comes out, I'm going to ask you to come back again. But I really love having you on some of these other shows because you are a horror fan, just like I am. And the last show we did together was Army of the Dead, right? Or did we do another between them?
No, I think that was it.
Yeah.
That was the last one. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had our zombie talk, and this time we're going to be talking about a really interesting footnote in the annals of horror. What we're going to be talking about, everybody, is House of Wax.
You see anybody?
No, nobody.
Hello?
I don't think anyone's here. Hey, who's that House of Wax? It is wax. Literally.
This is weird.
Looks like a hell of a party. Look how detailed this is. Tell me this doesn't look real. You're saying that that's a real person underneath?
They're all wax, everyone. Help! Please, somebody!
Now, House of Wax is a film that came out originally in 1953 with the incomparable Mr. Vincent Price. The movie, though, was actually a remake itself. So us talking about the 1953 film House of Wax is ruining somebody else's childhood because it was a 1933 film called Mystery of the Wax Museum.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? I didn't even realize they were making horror remakes back in the 50s, but
Yeah.
they were.
I had no idea, and that was a surprise to me. I didn't realize it was also based off something else. You know, these days when you can like research so much, but when you originally see things, you're like, I have no idea.
Yeah, for sure. And something really cool about the original, the 1953 House of Wax, is that it was the first 3D feature film released in color.
Yeah. That is one thing that I had no idea that was, apparently a thing. But looking back on the film and realizing like that fact, I'm like, oh, okay. It makes a lot of sense.
You can definitely see some of the tricks they were trying to employ.
There was like many moments where I'm like, oh, what is this, like some sort of 3D effect? Like, what are they doing? Like, what's happening here? This is so weird. Why is this thing happening? Like, specifically, it was that, I don't know what you call it, but that the paddle ball thing with the ball, the bouncy ball thing. And I'm like, this is going on for so long.
Way too long.
Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Little Egypt, Queen of the Harem, who danced at the Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. Is she wax, or is she flesh and blood? See the world in wax, the Hall of Fame, the Chamber of Horrors, A cultural exhibition that will enlighten you, amaze you.
You know, I think I could do that.
Oh, Billy, you couldn't.
I could, too, if I took my stays off. Don't do that and don't talk that way.
Watch it, young lady. Careful, sir. Keep your head down or I'll tap you on the chin. Look out. Duck. Wow, that's a becoming hat you're wearing, madam. I wonder if I can clip a flower off it. Hold steady now. Don't move your head or you'll lose the powder off your nose. Well, there's someone with a bag of popcorn. Close your mouth. It's the bag I'm aiming at, not your tonsils. Here she comes. Well, look at that. It's in the bag. See the lovely sinners of ancient times, ladies and gentlemen. Beauties who died in torture and on the block.
It was interesting the way that they used the trick when you really look back at it now. Because it wasn't overbearing, but in the where it was used, it was overbearing.
Yeah, there was like...
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I said, with that paddleball thing, it was like, okay, like let's move on to the next thing. How many times are we gonna, hit this thing right at your face? And then there was also like some dancing scenes and stuff like that. And but yeah, I mean, it was used well. Probably, I'm sure. I can't imagine what it was like, back in the 50s to have an effect like that, because I'm still, I still kind of, I still like that effect these days. And, now we've kind of like moved away from that as a 3D effect, is like, let's throw things at your face. But we don't necessarily do that all the time anymore. It's mostly just like, hey, let's take in this cool scenery and surroundings in more depth. But, it's always fun to kind of have something thrown at your face too.
For sure. Well, it's funny you say nowadays it's really just the scenery, but back in the actual remake of House of Wax, that was like the heyday of 3D, and I'm surprised House of Wax wasn't in 3D in 2005. There were a lot of horror movies that were coming out around that time that were 3D.
Yeah, what was the Jensen Ackles one? What was
there? Was My Bloody Valentine.
Year? Oh, My Bloody Valentine. Yeah, that's the one. I remember seeing that in theaters and being kind of blown away with how awesome it looked in person. And I remember having that same thought that I have nowadays, where it's like, oh, by the end of the film, you kind of forget that you're watching a 3D movie,
Right.
But yeah, it's always cool.
So yeah, we're going to talk about the 2005 House of Wax, and I think, Brad, when we weren't really around as children in 1953, but growing up, I got into horror in the early, as we've talked before, in the early teens, maybe 11, 12, and then early teens. And I just was gobbling up content. And so the original House of Wax is one of the films that I remember seeing probably 13 or 14 and really, really enjoying it. And I don't remember the corny, cheesy paddleball and some of the, like you said, the dancing, the twirling and things like that. I didn't remember that being off-putting, although watching it again now, it's kind of off-putting. But back then I was like just amazed with the story that they were telling. And I was completely enthralled in Vincent Price's character and how well he was playing it. And, back then, I think I probably watched House of Wax because I became a Vincent Price fan. It wasn't, I just put on House of Wax. I think I was watching other Vincent Price horror movies and was like, oh, let's check out House of Wax.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to say that original one is just really legit. Sometimes when you go back and watch an older movie, you never know. You never know really what you're going to get. If you're going to be like too stuck in like today's time frame and like, I don't really appreciate that older film or whatnot. But this one, I was like, oh, this is pretty legit. Like, it's very different, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but like in its own merits, it's like really, really good. And I thought that was awesome. And yeah, he killed it. He was super like charismatic and also creepy,
Yep. As he does so well.
That's always the case. Yeah, that's always the case.
I don't know that we've had an actor like him in the horror genre. I mean, there have been others that have, well, since that time, I should say, because there was Bella and him and, quite a few others during that time in the heyday of the 50s, 60s horror. But nowadays, it's hard to really pin down a specific person who is as great of an actor as they were that's just in horror movies.
Yeah, I have no idea. And to look back at like reviews, people were reviewing the 53 version and just saying like, oh, it was a little disappointing, and they're trying too much to do all that flashy stuff with the 3D and the sound and whatnot. That didn't really even cross my mind at all. Like I
Mhm.
was literally just thinking about like how cool is this movie? It really fits within a lot of those old horror films that I love, from even earlier than that.
Right.
And there was let me find this one review because it made me laugh really hard.
As you're looking that up, I'll say that something that I found really interesting when I was doing research on this film today is that in 2014 it was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry, which is pretty big.
Wow.
And it's because of the 3D, the color, the stereo vision, the sound, stereophonic sound. I mean, everything that they did with this film, it was kind of like a first.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the movie was panned a little bit, or not necessarily panned, but wasn't highly regarded in 1953, you can see that it did have an impact on films that came after.
Yeah. Now, I can't find this quote at all. It's gone. It's lost to time. But yeah. Anyway, I was surprised though to find that people were kind of negative on it. But I don't know. Maybe it's kind of that thing about the remake. I think that we always do that these days, right? It's like a movie's remade, and literally, as we're recording this, pictures are coming out of like the an upcoming Wonka movie, and people are like,
Mhm.
oh, come on, like it's just already it's starting, and it's literally just like a picture or two on the internet.
Yeah.
But like, maybe that's the case. Maybe it was kind of a bit of that, because as far as I know, it looks like the mystery of the wax museum is like spot, it's literally like, it seems like it's like frame for frame, like a complete remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, like completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to move ahead, you said like movies of today. Let's get into the 2005, and then we can compare and contrast as we talk through it. But
Yeah.
in 2005, they were riding high on the horror. Like the horror was a big thing again in the late 90s, and they leaned into the, gosh, how do I even say it right? They leaned into the Deliverance, the Hills Have Eyes. Like they really were going to say our audience likes these movies right now. Their Texas Chainsaw had a remake.
Yeah.
All of these movies of Hicks cutting up people. Let's do that with this movie.
Yeah, I guess it's like it just made people uncomfortable, right? And
Mhm.
I think anytime that you're in an area that's not necessarily uncharted, but it's like off the grid a little bit, and
Right.
you're unfamiliar with the territory, it's terrifying no matter who the person is. But
Right.
it's definitely an image for sure that
Mhm.
could creep you out.
Yep. I mean, there are a lot that came out around this time. Jeepers Creepers,
Oh yeah. Oh, Jeepers Creepers is
Wrong
awesome. I
Turn.
love that.
Yeah. Oh, Jeepers Creepers. The original is really good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Wrong Turn. The original of that was really good too, and that's the same kind of thing.
Hmm.
Or in my opinion, it was good. I didn't see the remake of that, but that is something eventually to talk through on this show, I bet. But so House of Wax came out in 2005, and they were kind of riding, or they brought in stars that they knew they didn't have to pay a lot of money for, but were popular at the time.
Seriously, like it's like a who's who of literally like 2005 to 2000s. It's quite hilarious.
Yeah, Chad Michael Murray from the OC, right? And then Paris
know,
Hilton, who was like huge at that point.
Yeah, Chad was from One Tree Hill.
One Tree Hill. Okay, yeah, they're all the same.
No, yeah. But those are shows that like in my time, I was like all about, all right, let's watch One Tree Hill, let's watch Supernatural.
Mhm.
I think
I love
think that
Supernatural.
I don't know if this came out it actually might have come out a little bit later, but still, it was like that time frame where you're like, these are all the teen heartthrobs, I guess, in a way, where everybody loves these people, so why not go see them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this movie came out Gosh, when was the release? I want to say I saw it after seeing the pilot of Supernatural, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, that's what I wanted to look at, because it says 2005 that Supernatural came out, so that's probably the same thing for me. I was like, all right, I love Supernatural. I got to go see this. One Tree Hill, I'm into that. Let's go see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's funny, not to go into Supernatural, but Paris Hilton was a guest star on Supernatural, aired in 2009. And it was an
Ooh.
episode called Fallen Idols.
Okay.
Season 5, episode 5. And there's a reference to this movie in that Supernatural episode.
Wow, I definitely still don't remember it.
Now that I'm looking on IMDb and I see the pictures
Let me see
and
what
the synopsis, I do remember, because the synopsis is that they go to a small town where people are murdered by famous dead icons, and it turns out that there's some kind of like spell or something in this museum with wax figures, and so Paris Hilton's in it, and she plays herself as a wax figure.
I love that show and all the weird places it goes. So
Me too.
I gotta
Me too.
revisit
Especially
that
when
one.
they get meta on themselves. I really
Yes.
like those ones.
It's like the only show that could really like get away with it that well.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy that Supernatural literally just ended, like,
I know.
last year or whenever that was. Like, it's still relevant.
Yeah, I loved Supernatural. Like, even when it got weird in the middle and the end, I still loved it.
Always love it.
But yeah, so Eliza Cuthbert, right? She was from Alicia Cuthbert, however you say her name. She was from 24.
Yep, another one.
And that might have been it for like the main stars that you'd know, but I mean, there's 4 of them right out of the gate. They didn't have to pay them a lot of money, and they put them in this horror movie to almost all get killed.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah, you're looking at Paris Hilton in this movie, and you're like, okay, I know what her role is. I know what's gonna happen here. So I don't know if she had any acting. I know you mentioned Supernatural, but I don't know what else. Outside of these 2 horror things, but
yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if her show was popular yet, or she got her show after that.
Yeah, I guess. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you can probably consider that acting too, right? I mean, it's a reality show.
Yeah, it wasn't real, right? They really were like over the top versions of themselves.
Yeah.
Supposedly. But getting back to the movie, so it did come out in a time where this type of film, this type of like backwoods, getting lost, like you said, kind of middle of nowhere, uneasy feeling, it was very popular. And I don't know what it was about it, but I saw this movie in the theaters in 2005 and I loved it. Even though I knew that the original House of Wax was way better and this was a cheap play at just getting to people like me who love these types of movies, I was all in. How did you feel about it?
Oh, I definitely loved it. And I was all in, around this time period as well, with all the different horror films that came out then, and this is no different. I mean, it's a bit predictable in the way, but like it's terrifying to me. Like I still, I refreshed and I watched it again, and I'm like, this is still pretty messed up and awesome. So I was into it back then. I loved it in the theater as well. So I don't know.
It's a movie that I don't revisit too often, but probably every like 5 years or so, I'll throw it on and I still get goosebumps. Like I was just downstairs in my house watching like a couple of the quick death scenes again, just to like refresh my memory. And my wife said, what are you recording about again tonight? And I said, House of Wax. She said, that movie terrified me. And she's she's a little bit younger than me. And she was, when in 2005, when this was out, I don't even know how old I am right now. I was 24. So she was 18, 19. So like understandable. That terrified an 18-year-old. I get it.
Yep. That was me too.
So I don't know though, something about it. I just, every couple years I'll revisit and remember what Jared Padalecki looked like when he was that young. Before he was Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah, that's true. And you remember, or I remember you just said you didn't revisit it a lot, but like I feel like I watched this one a lot, like at home after the
Hmm.
fact, and when I revisited it again, I was like, oh my god, I totally forgot like how much I rewatched this, and I was like, oh yeah, I barely even needed to rewatch it. I just needed to refresh my memory because I remembered so much of it.
Yeah, when I first got the DVD in either 2005 or 6 when it came out, I did have it on pretty steady repeat, like once a month, once every other month, I would throw it in.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of fallen to the wayside over the past couple years, where I would probably say, truly, maybe it's twice in the past 10 years, maybe 3 times in the past 10 years. So I don't revisit it as much as I should, because it is actually a pretty good movie. The acting is what you expect, but the actual horror elements, once you get to the halfway point in the movie, they just kind of keep coming and keep coming. And they're all really good. And I will say, spoiler alert to everybody out there, Jared Padalecki is one of the first people that gets it.
Oh,
And the scene showing him becoming a wax figure is burned in my memory. Like that is
Yeah,
something about
clearly.
this film I will never forget.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and that's certainly where this movie differs from the original. It's like it never gets that dark. It has dark elements, and there's, standard like I'm going to kill you to make you into a wax figure, but like this movie goes into it. Like it
Oh, yeah.
actually shows all the processes and the after effects of that, like literally that moment where like he's like his face peeling, and
Yeah.
like that is just that. Now that's something that is like seared in my memory. Is just like
the
that
machete.
It's just, yeah, and it's so horrifying of like when these people that are getting picked off, that they're like the people that are like kind of witnessing it are like, I'm so sorry, oh my god, I'm so sorry, like they thought they had their friend right there, and then they literally are just like tearing them apart. The one guy's head like falls off.
Yep. Oh man, it is brutal. It's brutal. But you brought up a good point, that the original wasn't really as dark, and understandably it couldn't be back then. But it was dark in its own way, because you just, without having to see the process, knowing what he's doing to get revenge is terrifying in its own.
Yeah. Well, can we just talk about how that guy, I forget what the guy's name was, but like there's a guy in the beginning of that original where like he's just like, hey, I got a crazy idea. Let's burn this place down. And he literally just starts doing it.
You ever thought of what would happen if we had a fire here? In the cellar, there's 6 barrels of wax. Wax has a paraffin base. It's highly inflammable. This whole place would go up like a paint factory.
Burn? Burn all my people? Do you think I'm a murderer?
Oh, stop dreaming, will you? These dummies are insured for $25,000. That's $12,500 for each of us. All you have to do is to strike a match, and the thing is done.
Like there's no hesitation. He just starts doing. He's like, I don't care. I'm gonna just kill this dude and burn him in this building alive. Like whatever, like it just
Burke was his name. He wanted out of that partnership. He didn't see it going anywhere, and he was done. And he just like on a dime, right? He's like, I want out of this, and then lights one person on fire, and then they just start fighting.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I thought you were going to do this at another date in time, like not literally. I didn't think you were going to be lighting matches right now, and I thought I had some time to think about it, but no, apparently not. But this, the storylines are so drastically different. There's like little elements that are the same. So, and it's cool when you see those little nods. You're like, oh, that's that's the face part where like the face is sculpted and stuff like that. But like at least the wax figures in this movie are, in the 2005 one, are way creepier overall.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what are the homages that you recognize in the film? Because I only recognize a few. One, the guy's name is Vincent. right? There's the two chairs, the two high chairs from the very beginning of the newer version, where the one kid is just sitting there happy as a clam eating his Cheerios, and then they carry in the other kid kicking and screaming and duct tape him to the chair, which is terrifying and scary and sad.
Yeah.
But one of the two names is Vincent, obviously in homage to Vincent Price.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another scene where the guy who always had the video camera, I forget his name now, but he is beheaded, and that's supposed to be kind of referencing the Anne Boleyn beheading. That's part of the historical acts from the original.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one that I just mentioned was literally like I forget which guy it was in the new movie, but the guy that's like the big brute, he has the wax face, and literally that's the same thing that happens to Vincent Price. And you're like, you see this scarred monster guy like running around the city there, and you're like, that's him, right? That's definitely him, obviously. But then like you see him later and you're like, oh, I mean, he looks perfectly fine. Like maybe it wasn't him, but like, yeah, you're like, I think somebody like hits the mask or whatever, and it just like breaks apart, and the monster's underneath. There was another one that I can't remember what it was off the top of my head right now, but I remember seeing another one where I was like, oh, that was definitely a reference.
Yeah. There are a few and far between, but they're there. And that's where sometimes these movies do a really good job of keeping it subtle. And that's one of the things that this House of Wax did. There are only a few references, but they're in there, and they're in there tastefully.
I mean, maybe the fire aspect could be a little reference.
Burning the House of Wax to the ground.
Yeah.
Which, again, going right to the end, it was amazing to me. I didn't see it coming, but it was amazing to me that the actual House of Wax was a true House of Wax.
Yeah.
It was so cool to me. Watching it just melt around them as the fire was blazing was such an awesome visual.
Yeah, that is very terrifying, because like they're literally trying to step their way through go upstairs. I think the brother is like trying to walk his way upstairs, and like he's just sunk deep into it, and you're like, well, I guess he's probably getting buried alive in here. And I couldn't help but think like, I didn't want to, but like sometimes I'm like, well, how realistic is this? When like anytime I touch some wax, in a candle over here, like I go with the temptation. Sometimes I put my finger in there and it burns and it's hot,
Yep.
So how hot is this place that they're fine? Like they're able to just walk right, like dig their way right out. So
yeah,
but it's a terrifying image overall. Like it's like it becomes like a magma pit. It's just like a pit of lava, just like it's terrifying,
Yep. That's another cool aspect of this film and the original, is that the House of Wax was its own character in each film. More so, I think, in this one, because it was made to be like an old house, and it was sculpted really, really beautifully. And then when you see the house start to melt, like those touches on the banister or the table that was a really nice dining room table just starts melting, and it's very cool. Or the piano, right? The piano started melting. That was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So the House of Wax was its own character. I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe the original even had better portrayal of like the figures burning in a way. Like I remember that being like a pretty cool image, but I didn't necessarily feel like there were humans under the original ones, but like with this movie, it doesn't. I don't know, the original one, like the wax figures looked very real, like they looked like lifelike. In the 2005, it's like there's something odd about them, and you just look at them, you're like, oh, this is weird. Like this, I don't know what's going on here, but like definitely looks like there's humans in there.
Yep, for sure. Especially when they first go into when Alesha's character Carly and Jared's character Wade first go into the House of Wax, and they go to the dining room table. One of the figures looks like a wax character, but the guy that's sitting at the other end that you see like his back when they walk in the room, when they show the front of him, he looks like a dude that just has like the thinnest layer of wax over his face.
Yeah.
It's very, very haunting.
the fact that these people are like, oh, so I think maybe just Jared, like, but
Was alive,
they're
yeah.
like alive in there, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh, it's just so brutal,
Yep. Yeah, because of what they did to Jared, you assume that's what they did to all of them, right? They're not alive anymore, but they were when they were put under wax.
Yeah, and yeah, it makes it much more traumatizing. Anytime a limb falls off and you see
Mhm.
the inside of the limb, it's like, oh
Yep.
my god, like,
Yep.
and then like and because it's not just the house that's terrifying; it's literally the entire town.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
I think like one of the best set pieces, which I'm probably jumping ahead, but like that movie theater
Mhm.
is such an incredible set piece.
Yeah.
It's horrifying, every aspect of it, and just thinking about probably all these people, you know, just placed in this theater room, and for how long did they get to just watch some film on a screen until they died? Like,
Right.
it's messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even really think of that, but you're right.
Sorry.
Man, no, that's just another creepy aspect.
Yeah.
Man, I got to chill. Thanks. You know what I find really funny though about the major differences between these two, the original and this one, is that the way that the woman figures out that they're real people and corpses in the original, she pulls back the wig of one of them and sees blonde hair underneath, and she screams. Nothing
Yeah.
moves. She can't really tell, but it's blonde hair underneath, therefore that's my friend. And so she shrieks. And in this one, the guy goes up and sees Jared playing the piano or sitting at the piano and touches his cheek, and of course the wax pushes it in, and then his eyes move, and that's way more creepy.
Yeah. The other one is just like, hey, I think that looks like my friend.
Yeah.
But this one is your friend, and it's
Mhm.
messed up as all hell. It's horrifying. I think overall this movie has some like very disturbing pieces of imagery that
Mhm.
I think because a lot of horror can just kind of blend together, because it's like slash here, a slash there, what's the difference? But like this is something unique and odd, that it definitely stands out.
Mhm. For sure. What's your favorite kill in the 2005 version?
I mean, I guess it has to go to Paris Hilton, right? It's something pretty unique. I forget exactly, but I just remember like, and it's not a kill, but let me just mention this real quick. I remember it's always such like one of the most cringe inducing things for me is like when Alicia has her finger through the grate, and
Yeah.
it's just like that cut off the
Mhm.
fingertip, like that stuff almost like makes me squirm way more. But Paris Hilton getting chased through this garage sequence, and like there's a few times where you're like, maybe she'll get out of here, maybe she's gonna hide for a little bit, she'll be okay. But and the fact that this guy has like this camera the whole time, and it's been filming them, and is literally filming her as she's like staked like into the ground, like,
Right.
it's so gruesome. It's so gruesome. Oh,
It is. He just throws the whatever metal rod or spear or
spike or
whatever, and it
something,
goes
yeah.
through the car window and goes through her head, and she kind of like slides down it a little bit.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
man.
That slide down, like, it's not bad enough somebody's just impaled completely, but to then like push her down or slide down, like that is that's a whole nother level. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. He just pushes it with his boot, right? Oh God, while he's filming it. Gross.
Oh, and don't they
I
take
hope
home?
everybody realizes this is like a rated R version of this podcast, right?
Oh yeah. The best part about that video is like, at the end of the movie, they're like, "Oh, I snuck out this videotape. I wonder what's on here." And like the kids like take it home or whatever, and I'm like, "You guys are gonna completely regret taking that tape home. Like, there's nothing. You're not gonna find anything good on there. Like, you know."
Yep. For sure. I don't know. So Paris is great, but I'm still like the Wade, which is Jared Padalecki's character. Seeing what he went through, it still gets
Sure.
me. Just turning into wax, and then when the power saw comes and cuts half of his face off, the lower half of his face, and you see his eyes, and like he's kind of screaming beneath the wax, and then everything burns around him. Like, what a way to go.
Yeah, that's very traumatic. I think like the original had that boiling pot of wax, right? Where like that was like as far as they went to kind of show like anything that would have happened. And I think he fell into it at the end.
Yeah,
Spoilers,
Vincent.
I guess. But nothing like, and actually, there was a bit in the original where it was like that table with all the sprays. I think that was like
Right.
another nice homage, right? Like,
Mhm.
but like this one like covers him completely, and it's I can't. It's terrifying.
Yeah, agreed. In the original, I don't remember if they show anybody get sprayed. I think it's more the illusion of it. I can't recall, but at the
I
very
think
end, when he
it's
falls into the vat
I
of
think it's
wax,
just
they pull the last girl away, so nothing happens to her.
Mm-hmm.
She's passed out on the table because she knocked his mask off and then fainted when she saw his face, his burnt face.
Yeah,
so he put her on the table to turn her into another statue.
Yeah, which I'm assuming I would probably faint as well. Terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. The two guys, the two brothers, Bo and Vincent, they're the two killers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seemed, I don't know, it seems odd. I don't get their motivation other than the fact that they were like abused, right, as kids. But I just don't understand why, other than to make it a cool movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Does it have to do with the fact that like their town? It was mostly due to like the highway or something, right? That was just like they just bypassed them, and then like their town became forgotten, and I guess there's like a little bit of like revenge and all of that. Like anybody that falls off the highway and comes towards them is like is a bad person, and somebody deserves what's coming to them, and I don't know. I guess that's part of it, but it's like imagine if Cars the movie went bad, because it's like the same thing. It's like literally the same looking town, right? Like you just throw some like neon lights and stuff on it, it looks exactly the same. Radiator Springs.
Yep, you're exactly right. It's just Doc Hudson just starts murdering people.
Yeah, and Doc's little museum that he has for himself is the House of Wax, and it all makes sense.
Mater's obviously the Vincent character who just goes around killing people with his hook, with his tow hook, and Doc's the mastermind.
We stumbled onto something here. I don't like it. I definitely don't like it, and I hate the fact that I just brought this up because now I'm never gonna see it any other way.
Yep.
Why?
What's interesting, though, that they never paid off, and I was really hoping for at the end to jump all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
The police come and they save Carly and Nick. And when they're leaving town, the police tell them that there was a third sibling. And they see him waving goodbye, but then the movie just ends. And we never got a House of Wax 2 where Lester was the villain. But it seemed like they were setting it up.
Yeah, I guess that's what they were trying to do, right? If it just, hindsight, it's like it's very strange. It's a very strange ending now, just because we don't have anything to follow this up. I don't know if that was their intention or not, but it feels weird. But I kind of get the sense that like based off of the movie that we see, that like he might just be the good brother. I don't know, like because I legitimately like felt bad for him in that beginning sequence when he's driving them, but like at the same time he is driving them to the town where he definitely knows that like
right,
bad stuff is probably happening there, but like I don't know, I still felt bad for him because he brought up a good point. It's like, really, just because I am who I am, you assume that I'm a bad guy, and
Yep.
I'm not gonna. It's literally right there. All I got to do is just drive you right through here. Nothing bad's gonna happen. But yeah, I guess he was just very like cavalier about the fact that he's like, hey guys, I'm right here. I'm also bad guy too. And you're like, okay, like, is that how we're gonna end? Nobody's gonna tell. Like,
Nope.
that's probably the guy right there.
Yep. He's the one who brings everybody into town. He cuts their different car brake lines or radiator strips or whatever it is, fan belts, and forces them to go to town so his brothers can kill him.
I guess so. I mean, it seemed like he was legitimate for a bit, but it's still up in the air for me. But I guess like the fact that he does kind of bring people there kind of makes him bad, I guess, overall, because unless he's just super like naive about the whole thing, like, I don't know what's happening up there on that hill.
Good accent. Perfect. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else about the original that you'd want to talk through, or even the Way original, The Mystery of the Wax Museum, if you've seen it?
I've kind of breezed through it, but I was like, oh, this definitely just seems like like the other one. It seems exactly the same. So like, I didn't give it too much time, but like I said before, I think the original one, or the original House of Wax at least, was, a very, very good movie. And I definitely dug into that a lot. And I liked how like the nighttime sequences were shot and stuff like that. I thought it was pretty creepy, with him kind of like being this monster that kind of roams through the streets and skips around because he's got like a walking issue and stuff like that. But like, I thought it was pretty creepy looking in that sense. But overall, it was like, it is kind of like an older horror film where it's like, it's not too scary, it's not too anything. It's just like, we can just throw this on. Nothing really all that bad about it,
It's more so for the acting at this point, because nothing's really going to scare you, but it's watching Vincent Price in his element.
Yeah, he looks super cool. Like, he's just like at his peak right there. I feel like he looks awesome, and it's just like, it's a great role. I don't know. I'm glad it exists.
Yep, me too.
And that it's different. And that it's different than this one because,
right.
This one, the new one is very stylized and like the 2000s and everything, but that one feels very, very different.
Something that I think is pretty cool about the 1953 version is that they also paid homage to the original, because the main character in the original from 1933's last name is Igor, and Vincent Price's character's like right-hand man is a mute guy named Igor.
Yeah, I did notice
or Igor,
that. I was like, oh, there we go. There it is. There's the homage right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and they also have like a Marie Antoinette that they're hiding people in, and that's one of the big things. And this is in the 1953, is he was going to make the last woman that was on the table at the very end into Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, that I remember that kind of confusing me, because it was like, she looked like her already, but he was making her into her again. I guess because she was like the perfect version of it. I don't know.
Yep, exactly. And he's gonna basically make her a living Marie Antoinette wax figure, but then do the real beheading, which is kind of macabre for that movie. For 1953.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because how drastically his character changes, because in the beginning of the movie, he says something like, oh, I'm not into, murdering people or something like that. Like, he said something along those lines. And then all of a sudden, he definitely is. And he's totally fine with it.
Well,
so
when
you're
traumatically burned up in a fire by your business partner, things change.
Yeah, but like, okay, just off the business partner. He goes down the rabbit hole and he just doesn't
sure
care.
Does. Everybody that looks at him the wrong way in his wheelchair.
Yeah. It's really good though. I dug that one a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, wrapping this up, Brad, is there anything about the new 2005 version House of Wax that ruined your childhood?
Well, no, in a way that I would look at it the opposite direction because I think I saw this one first,
Mhm.
the 2005 one. So how would that work? Would I be
Did
ruining? So my
1953
child,
ruin your
so
childhood?
my child, did 1953 ruin my childhood? I think it's possible. Like, no, but it didn't. Like I said, I appreciate both of them for
Mhm.
the different movies that they are. Basically, there's wax involved, and maybe some people in wax and the name, and that's about it. Like everything else is so drastically different that there's like
Mhm.
really no reason that either one I don't think should ruin anything. But maybe if you're in 1953, maybe your childhood was ruined from
Maybe.
from the 19 whatever 33 one.
Mhm.
That would be, you'd have to find one of those people, maybe ask
Yeah.
them.
That'll be difficult now, but I'll try. I'll try. Um, I for me, same kind of thing, except I did see the original,
Yeah.
or I shouldn't say original. I saw the 1953 House of Wax first, and it was during a time where I was just like I said into Vincent Price. I just wanted to watch Vincent Price movies, and with that, I was also really into everybody during that time, like Karloff and Lugosi,
Lugosi.
and of course Abbott and Costello. All those movies where they meet Frankenstein, and there's just
Yeah.
all these great actors and actresses in them. I was really into that for a while, and so when this came out, I was like, oh, they're redoing House of Wax. I wonder who's going to play the Vincent Price character. I wonder what it's going to be like. Is it going to be the same? And when I saw it in the theater, of course, it didn't ruin it because it was so different. It felt like a completely different movie in a good way. And so
Yeah.
I was really excited. Like you kind of said, it's good to have both versions.
Oh, definitely. You're expecting something different, right? In that time period, you're expecting something a little bit more brutal. Like you're saying, horror
Mhm.
was going pretty wild at that point in time. So it's like, you're expecting what this 2005 one gave you. But I bet there would probably be a lot of people that maybe are disappointed with this one because it is like this very like the hot teens at the moment and like
Mhm.
just that predictable kind of storyline and everything. It's just maybe it's not somebody's cup of tea, but I
Yeah,
think I think
I'm
it's I think it gets a little like it's kind of going through like a little renaissance. I do see a lot of people like talking about it now and really saying how good it is, and I agree.
yeah. Yeah, right there with you. All right, so I think this is a pretty quick episode to talk about House of Wax, but I appreciate you coming on for our first of the October spooky kind of movies that we'll talk about. So thanks for joining. Where can people find you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Anytime, man. I always love comparing things, and I want next time you got to get me for like one that I'm like, no, it definitely ruined my childhood. Because so far I've been like three for. Well, I guess we didn't really do it on the last one, did we? I don't.
No,
I
I
think we
mean we
just.
talked
Oh
about
no,
like
we.
zombie movies and
Yeah,
if it
that's right. We did
ruined
kind of.
zombie
Yeah.
movies for us.
No, it didn't. So yeah, I'm 3 for 3 on no ruining of my childhood. So can
Okay,
we ruin it for once, maybe?
sure. Yeah, let's work on that.
I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty like easygoing with so many films that I don't know if that's even possible, but we'll see.
Mhm.
But if you want to find out more, I'm at Brad Jost on Twitter. You can find me there or on the Jurassic Park podcast. I'm there every week. And Grinning Hosts, I'm on that. We have some Halloween stuff coming up, so definitely check that out. I will have a Halloween episode of the Jurassic Park podcast as well, so check that out
Oh, that's
on
exciting.
Halloween. Yeah, we do one every year, and they're always super fun. They're like there's like different skits and fun, just little things segments that we put together. So, and then I'm
Very cool.
also on the Forcecast Live every other Thursday night. So I'm all over the place apparently.
Yeah,
Too many
that's
places.
so fun. The Forcecast stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have a good time with that.
Good. Very cool. Well, so for me, everybody can find me at Phildimo, Fildimo, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can follow the show at Podcast Ruined on Instagram and Twitter. And with that, everybody, I want to thank Brad for joining us one more time. And I hope that our look back at House of Wax 2005, House of Wax 1953, and what was it called? Murders in the Wax House.
Mystery
of the Wax House.
Wax Museum. Mystery of the Wax Museum.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. That one from 1933.
Only murderers in the wax building. Yeah.
We hope that these look backs at all these movies didn't ruin anybody's childhood.
Could it be I've misunderstood? This podcast ruined my childhood.
It was really exciting for this to be my first big movie, you know, I'm so proud of it. My mom was like, oh, that was really weird seeing my daughter, like, killed, but she liked it overall. Alicia's really funny, I love her. We really bonded because we were the only girls in the movie. Yeah, it is exciting. I like FHM, so it's nice. Thanks for voting for me, it's hot. I love it.
I love Superman Returns.
Okay, good. Me too.
I feel like I'm like the only one who. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Nope, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I love that movie. I mean,
I don't love the Lois, Kate Bosworth.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't love her as Lois, but everything else, like Brandon Routh, is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I'll let you go. We're on way too long. You have way too many things to do with how packed your schedule is. So, I again appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man.
I hope you have a great night, and I'm sure I will text you some ridiculous thing tomorrow.
Sounds good, man.